Very good morning to one and all. Myself, Dr. Durgesh Vele from Department of Chemical Engineering, College of Engineering and Technology, Akola. I welcome all of you for the Faculty Development Program uh, organized by Department of Civil Engineering, College of Engineering and Technology, Akola on the topic Pedagogical Methods for Outcome-Based Educations. So once again, I welcome all of you. Now, today's topic, which I am going to deliver, is on the rubrics, which are used as an assessment tools. So, as we all know, in the engineering course assessment, rubrics are an very essential tools which are used in our outcome-based education, especially which are aligned with our NBA and the NAC requirements. So this particular session will focus on what rubrics are, why they are so important, and how we practically use them in engineering courses. So let us start with one by one. I will explain you. So now as you see the teaching learning assessment cycle, now in our outcome based educations, now all the three criteria in NBA are being accessed as outcome based curriculum, outcome based syllabus, and outcome based education. So particularly the outcome are very much important in the NAC and the NBA accreditation systems. So for which we required to assessment tools. We required various types of assessment tools, and we know that traditionally we have mainly the marks oriented and the exam dependent assessment tools. However, under the outcome based educations and the NBA accreditations, the focus has now been shifted from how much the students score and what students can actually do. So this gap between teaching and learning and assessment is effectively addressed by using this particular rubrics. So we need the improving structures and the quality of our assessment. So if you see, so these are the traditional methods. So in our engineering education systems, so initially the written examinations play major roles for accessing the learning and the awarding of the grades to our students. And all our universities and the colleges give the highest weightage to these outcomes of the written examinations in overall gradings. So but written examinations access a very limited range of our outcomes and cognitive levels. So particularly in a course where the course outcomes over a broad range of expectations. So that's why it is advisable to formulate the assessment plans for each of our course in the program that brings clarity to the alignment of assessment with learning outcomes, then the level of learning and assessment methods to be adopted. Now, the Bloom's taxonomy, we all aware about this, plays a very important role in the assessment designing. So Bloom's taxonomy provides an important framework to not only design the curriculum and the teaching methodologies, but also it is used to design the appropriate examination questions which are belonging to various cognitive levels. So these are the very important things, and all of we aware about how the revised Bloom's taxonomy will be work. So there are various levels of this taxonomy, like level 1, level 2, level 3 up to level 1 to level 6 are there, and the descriptors which are used are the remembering for level 1, and understanding for level 2, applying for level 3, analyzing for level 4, evaluating for level 5, and creating for the level 6. So and depending upon these descriptors, the level of attainment is also been fixed as per this Bloom's taxonomy. So now apart from this Bloom's taxonomy, so using and scoring the rubrics as an assessment tool. So rubrics plays a very important role in the assessment systems also. So what exactly rubrics? So rubrics is a structured assessment tool that clearly defines the criteria for evaluating our students' performance along with different levels of achievements. So in simple words, if we talk about rubrics tells the students what is expected and how it will be accessed and how the marks will be awarded. So with the help of rubrics, we can easily do the assessment, okay, of the students, and we also award the marks or the grades to that particular uh, students, individual students. So rubrics plays a very important role during this particular accessing systems. So again I will simply repeat, rubrics is a structured scoring guide, so which is used to evaluate a student's performance. Okay, so there is various criteria for defining a rubrics also. First is the assessment criteria, for example program understanding, methodologies, accuracy, design approach, or various accessing assessment area criteria we have to define. Then the performance level we have to define, like whether it is excellent, whether good, satisfactory, or the poor. Then we have to clearly mention the descriptors, for example the clear descriptions we have to mention that the what performance actually looks like at each level. And fourth is the what is the marks or the weightage that we are going to assign as per their levels. So these points are assigned to the each particular criteria. So rubrics basically brings us a transparency, fairness, and uniformity and objectivity in the evaluation processes. So that's why these rubrics are the very important. Now, why rubrics are important in engineering assessment? Now see, the engineering courses requires the evaluation not only on the theoretical subjects but also requires the evaluation of the complex problem solving, design skills, the students laboratory skills, the students project execution, then the teamwork, communication, innovation, etc. So which for which we have to define the rubrics for their evaluation in these particular areas. For example, if we talk only about the laboratory, then we have to define how the performance of a student is being accessed in their laboratory work. So I have give you here a simple structure of a typical rubrics which are used in an engineering. So this is the example which we are using for evaluating an engineering lab experiment reports. So this is a very simple example which I have been formulated here. So for example, if I have to evaluate an lab experiment for an report, so as per the criteria which we have mentioned in the earlier slide, we have to mention the various criteria under which we are going to evaluate the performance of that particular students. So for example, there are various criteria: understanding of objective of the experiment, then the methodology of the experiment, then the data handling of that particular experiment, then analysis and interpretation of that particular experiment and its presentation skills. So for example, I have mentioned here the 5 criteria for evaluating the lab experiment report of an particular students. Then I have to also define the weightage, so the weightage which we have to give for its evaluation. For example, again here I have mentioned the understanding of objectives 10%, methodologies 25%, then data handling 25%, analysis and interpretation 25%, and presentations as 15%. So this is the very simple way, this is the very simple way in which we have to assign the weights also. Then as we have mentioned that we have to again mention their we have to mention their sorry descriptor levels and performance level. So in the performance level we can judge their performance as excellent, then good, satisfactory, as well as poor, and on the basis of their performance we are providing the weightage to the weightage to the every criteria out of on the scale of 4, 1 to 4. So 1 is the minimum and lowest and 4 is the highest. So again the descriptors, we also have to mention the descriptors here. or we have to mention the descriptor, that is with the clear instructions. So what we are looking for the performance level. So like for excellent, if we have to give assign an excellent remark in the first criteria, that is the understanding of objective, we should require a clear and the precise knowledge or understanding of that particular explained to that particular students. Similarly, if it is not clear but mostly clear, then we can assign him 3 marks. If it is partially correct, then we assign the students as 2 marks, and if it is very poor, then we call it as incorrect, or if he is incorrect, then we can assign him the 1 mark in the particular criteria. In the similar way, for each criteria we have to assign the particular marks. So these descriptors plays a very important role in the evaluation of that particular students. So if if his methodology is accurate and if his methodology is systematic, then we can assign him the 4 marks. If he is accurate and neat in data handling, then we can assign him 3 marks. But if he makes some minor mistakes, then we assign him the 3 marks. So depending upon the criteria and the performance of an individual student, we are going to assign these particular marks to that particular students. So it's very important to mention the descriptors very clearly for assigning the particular marks to the students. Then once we assign the marks, after the execution of the performance, we have to give the students the various marks. So for example, suppose I have mentioned here how marks are been calculated by using the rubrics. So suppose the student receives in the understanding, he receives good, then in methodology he receives or he receives excellent remark, data handling satisfactory, and analysis good. So on the basis of his performance, he got 3 of 4, 4 of 4, 2 of 4, or 3 of 4 marks. So depending upon that marks, we have to, and its weightage, we have to assign him the particular marks, which is the, so 10% plus into 3 by 4 is 7.5, methodology 25. So these types of marking systems we have to assign, and the total marks out of 100 are being assigned as per the addition in the all the particular criteria. So for here, for the example given here, the students will receive 75 marks out of the hundreds. So this is how the marks can be calculated by using that particular rubrics. So if we see where the rubrics are used in the engineering programs, now this is a very important aspects that we should aware, or we should know where we have to use this particular rubrics. So now rubrics are mandatory in our outcome based education systems, and which are help to map us the course outcomes to our program outcomes. So the rubrics plays a very important role for mapping our COs and POs in our outcome based education system. So we can see here, so these particular kinds of rubrics we have to use in the laboratory assessment, where we have to follow the observations, performance, and safety record and record books of the particular individual experiment which is performed by the individual students. Also we can assign the rubrics in assignments, or for the evaluation of assignments and for evaluation of the tutorials, where we can assign the problem solving to the students and performing accessing their accuracy and their explanations. Similarly, the rubrics can be used in major and the minor projects for the evaluation of our major and minor projects, where we can where we can access their innovation, design modeling, execution, communication, and teamwork. So these types of, so we can use the rubrics for the internal test assessment, as well as the assessment of the seminars and the presentations of the student. Also they are used to access or the assessment of internship evaluations. So they are very important in the accessing the this particular areas in our engineering. So there are also various types of rubrics that we have been find. So there are mainly two types of rubrics. First is the holistic rubrics, where the performance is judged as a whole of the students, and second type of rubrics that we have to use are the analytical rubrics, where each criteria is assessed separately. Now in engineering educations, as we can see, the analytical rubrics perform are preferred, so because they provide a detailed feedback and are better suited for the CO and the PO mapping in this particular area. So that's why we are more focusing about these analytical rubrics. So in our outcome based education, as we have discussed, so every assessment must be linked to our course outcomes. So I will show you how the questions or the tasks are assigned to the COs. Then COs can be assigned to POs and PSOs. So thus the rubrics act as a bridge between the teaching activity and the outcome attainment. So also, if we see what are the various benefits of using the rubrics. So the rubrics will provide the various benefits to the students. It will provide the benefits to the teachers, as well as it is very much beneficial for our accreditation systems. So now rubrics also ensure that the different cognitive levels of our Bloom's taxonomy are also being accessed. For example, uh, for students, clear expectations, better understanding of grading, more focused learning, and self assessment becomes easier. So where for teachers, it is also a very transparent and the objective gradings. So for example, these rubrics will ensure us that the different cognitive levels of the Bloom's taxonomy are being accessed. For example, remember and understanding, apply and analyze, evaluate and create. So each level can be clearly described in the rubric descriptors. And for the accreditation system, it is a very good evidences based assessment which improves the quality of our assurance, and it shows the systematic evaluation practices. So this is very much important for the NBA as well as NAC accreditation systems. So you will find here some sample engineering rubrics patterns I have been mentioned here for this particular various areas. For example, if we have to evaluate the assignments or the problem solving rubrics or the problem solving rubrics, so these are the various criteria we can match along with their our COs. So for example, program understanding is our CO1, applications of principles is based as CO1 or CO2, so it will cover our CO1 and CO2. Calculations of accuracy, it is for CO2. Explanations and justifications for CO3, and presentations and the neatness. So these are the various criteria that we can define for accessing the assignments or the problem solving methods. So the Bloom's levels that will be covered in this particular criteria are been also mentioned here. For example, in the program understanding, the first level 2 and level 3 is of the Bloom's will level will be covered. In second criteria, the level 3 is been applied, level 3 is covered. In the third criteria, again the level 3 and level 4 both are being covered, and in the same way in criteria 4 and in criteria 5 you will find that the level 4 level 5 will also be covered. So accordingly also we have to mention the weightage for that particular calculations. So again for CO1 20, 30, 30, 15 and 5. So these weight percent marks will be assigned for each criteria, for each accessing criteria. Similarly, on the basis of the performance of a particular student, we have to give him the particular marks from 1 to 4 depending upon the descriptors that we have mentioned for that particular criteria. So he gives you correct interpretations and all assumptions are stated in the particular problem, then we can assign him the 4 out of 4 marks, or we assign him out of 3 out of 4 marks, or we assign him 2 out of 4 marks. So this is the simple methodologies that we have to follow. In the similar way, you can see the laboratory experiments rubrics are also been mentioned here. So we can find here the laboratory experimental rubrics. We have to assign the criteria as pre-lab preparations, experimental technique and safety, then data collection and precisions, analysis and interpretations, report clarity and format. So these are the again 5 criteria that we have to mention, which are been assigned or which are been aligned with our course outcomes CO1, CO2, CO3 as well as CO4, and also what Bloom's levels also we are going to cover with that particular course outcomes, and accordingly we have to mention the weightage here, and again we have to assign the mark grading systems from 1 to 5. So depending upon the program, we can even make a simple modifications in this particular criteria also as per our requirements. So these are the various examples which I have been quoted here for the calculations of laboratory experiments rubrics. Then next are the for the evaluations of our major projects or the capstone projects rubrics also. Even you can see the evaluations of the major projects or the evaluation of our capstone projects are being made with the help of this particular systems as per the various criteria. Even some programs can evaluate the major projects in the 3 different stages also, like stage 1, stage 2 and the final stage, where the criteria may also be changed. So in the initial stage more weightage will be given for the literature surveys, and in the third stage the more weightage will be given for their practical performances. So accordingly the evaluation of the major projects or the capstone projects are also been made with the help of this rubric systems. So rubrics will play a very important and the vital role for evaluation of this particular uh, task. So and accordingly we can vary the weightage also for that particular programs and its evaluation. So once we calculate all the marks, then we can find how the rubric scores can be related to CO attainments or the PO of the program attainments. So this is the various simple steps that we have to. It has been done in 2 different steps. In the step 1, we have to collect the rubrics raw scores. So the rubrics raw scores can be collected with the help of the our above data. So for each students we have to collect this particular raw student score, which is equals to the, for example here the student score in percent is nothing but it is the summation of I to n number of students. So score which is been PO of the program attainments. So this is the various simple steps that we have to. It has been done in 2 different steps. In the step 1, we have to collect the rubrics raw scores. So the rubrics raw scores can be collected with the help of the our above data. So for each students we have to collect this particular raw student score, which is equals to the, for example here the student score in percent is nothing but it is the summation of I to n number of students. So score which is been scored by individual score, maximum score multiplied by its weight. So the weight is expressed as the percentage and it is equals to summing to the area. Now the steps 2 is define our CO attainment bands or the targets. So the in our we know that in our common MBA practices we have to set a target attainment for each CO. For example, if I will score make a target attainment of 70% or 3 on a 4-point scale, then you there or we can then compute and attend the percentage of the students meeting or exceeding the our target. So if 70% of the students are scoring 70% of the marks, above scoring the 70% of the marks, then we can say that our attainment or our target attainment is been achieved. And if it is not been scored, then we have to find the attainment gap, what is the expected gap, and then we have to do some additional things for the gap filling or to attain that particular gap. So after that there are the 2 common calculations method. So for our direct attainment, so for method A is our direct attainment which is recommended for our rubrics. So for each students, if a mark CO as attained if the student score is greater than the target score. For example, as I have just mentioned here, if a student's score greater than 70% marks, we can say that that particular CO is been attained. Okay. Also, the CO attainment percentage is equals to the number of students that attended our score divided by the total students multiplied by 100. So this is, from this we can even calculate the that CO attainment by the complete number of students. And second method B is to calculate the average attainment which used by the many programs. So we have to compute the average of the student score across the class, so which is equals to average score, and CO attainment is equals to average score divided by the maximum possible score, which is multiplied by 100. So this is the second methodology that we can use for calculations of our methods. Next is the various tips that we can use for the NBA evidences and documentations, because for the NBA programs we have to make the evidences and the documentation. So record our rubrics forms of every access task. So whatever task that we are going to be access, with the help of the rubrics we have to maintain the record of that particular task, which includes the CO mapping on the rubric form. Then use the blue verbs in the CO statements. So whatever CO statement, that is the course outcome statements we are mentioning, we have to use the Bloom's verb, so that the mapping to assessment level is obvious. For example, the design and implement, it will create an level 6 assignment. So this is how easily these particular verbs are used to relate that particular CO and its level. Then third is the state the attainment target. So we have to set the attainment target in the program assessment policy. So every program have to make its assessment policy, and depending upon that particular policy we have to set the attainment target, whether the attainment target is 60, 70 or in the range of 60 to 75%. It is completely depend upon that particular program, and show how closing the loop actions when the targets are been met. So if your attainment is been completed, then we can move to switch our target to the next level. But if our target is not met, then we have to fulfill that particular gap, and we have to work on the finding the gap between the attainment. So also we have to use the consistent scale. So we have to use a 4-point scale or a 5-point scale, but more obviously we are using the 4-point scale for the evaluation systems. So as a case study, I have mentioned here the fluid mechanics laboratory rubrics, which is designed exactly as per the NBA or the outcome based education requirements. So you can see here, suppose I have to use the fluid mechanics laboratory evaluation of the various students. So what are the number of steps and how we have to assign it? So first thing, as we have mentioned, we have to assign our COs. So as per the assessment type is the experimental performance plus record plus viva. So this is our assessment types. So first we have to mention our COs as per our Bloom's verb. So CO1 is explain the basic principles. So here we are expecting understanding. So level 2. CO2, that is our CO2 is conduct the fluid mechanics experiment and use the proper instrument. So here we are applying the things. So it's a level 3. Then CO3 is analyze the experimental data. So we are analyzing here. So it's a level 4. Then CO4 is interpret the results. So interpretation is there. So we are evaluating. So definitely level 5 is coming here. And suppose CO5, it's a prepare a well structured laboratory report. So he is creating as well as evaluating. So again the level 5 and level 6 of the Bloom's levels are been completing here. So this is how first we have to assign our course outcomes here. Then we have to mention the criteria, what are the various Bloom's level and the weightage that we are giving to that particular criteria. So since it is a laboratory rubric, so as we have earlier mentioned, we have keep the same criteria here, that is the pre-lab preparations, CO1, experimental setup and accuracy, the CO2, data measurements and observations quality, CO2 and CO3, data analysis calculation, CO3, CO4, interpretation discussion, CO4, CO5, and like this. So Bloom's levels that are being covered here are also been mentioned, and the weightage that we have to assign. So, and again the evaluation guide here from 1 to 4. 4 is the excellent grade and 1 is the last or the poor grade. So after the performance of the individual student's performance, his performance is being evaluated in the 5 criteria or the 6 criteria that we have mentioned here. So suppose, for example, if a student if a student will score these marks, then how we required or how NBA required. So if a student score the criteria wise marks, so we have mentioned the criteria, we have mentioned its weightage, and we have also mentioned here the scores of that particular students, whatever he get, and weightage of the marks on the 4 point out of 10 are 7.5, out of 30 marks. So this is how we can calculate its weighted marks. So we can find that here he scores 86.25 marks out of 100. So similarly, the next step is CO. So this is how we have to calculate the for individual students we have to calculate the marks which he scores out of 100. Similarly, now we have to make the CO attainment mapping examples. How to map this CO attainment? So CO1, CO2, CO3. So we have to for NBA we compute the CO attainment as the average marks for that particular CO divided by the maximum marks for the CO multiplied by 100. So for example, if we have to calculate for the CO3, now you can see that CO3 is in your criteria 3 as well as in criteria 4, where the weightage is given to the 25% to that complete criteria. And in that third criteria you will see CO2 and CO3 both are having equal marks. So out of the 25 marks you will see that the 12.5 marks are being assigned for that particular shared, because it is shared 50% weightage in that particular criteria. So example for CO3, in observations it is shared 50% and in analysis also it is shared 50%. So for the CO3 the total weightage is 50%. Then feed into CO and PO matrix. We know about that particular matrix also. So this is how we have to calculate its particular weightage. Now, how rubrics will satisfy our NBA requirement? So the rubrics will satisfy the NBA requirements as our direct assessment. So rubrics for the lab work, Viva and the report. So we are clearly getting the COPO mapping with the Bloom's level. Our objective measurements and evidences for accreditation. Also it supports our outcome based education, where the measurable outcomes with attainment levels we can easily be calculated. So with this example we can clearly understand how the rubrics will definitely work for the evaluation processes. Then the advantages of the rubrics. So rubrics basically ensures the objectivity and consistency. It clear expectations for the students. It provides a strong evidences for our NBA, and also it helps for the continuous improvements. These are the advantages. And lastly, the conclusions. So rubrics makes our engineering assessment transparent, measurable, and which are aligned with our outcome based education as well as the NBA guidelines. So they improve both teaching quality and the students outcomes. So with this I will stop here. Thank you very much for your patience listening. Once again I will thank the organizer, the head of department of civil engineering, for giving me this opportunity to share with you the data with you. Thank you very much once again.